I was embodied in my masculine energy, the hustle, the achievement, the action oriented, trying to control things. I developed a strong sense of needing to be in control. It affected my first marriage because my ex was very controlling. So it led to a lot of tension and a lot of conflict. And then my second ex-husband, then saying, I'm going to go out and control everything, he just developed a very strong resistance against anything that felt like it was trying to control him. It was this idea that if I understand how the world works, if I understand why things are the way they are, I'll be able to control them. What is your own belief about yourself being single and not having children?
That's tough. Yeah, I mean, I've never thought deeply about it, but let's see. It makes me feel left behind, or like behind in some sort of way.
So what I might offer as an invitation to look at, and you can take it or leave it, right? If it doesn't resonate, then you can just chuck it out the window.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our podcast, Life as a Say podcast. On today's episode, I have another wonderful guest. Her name is Carissa Karban. Welcome, Carissa.
Thank you, Zuki. So happy to be here.
You're welcome. So a brief intro on Carissa. Carissa is a coach and the founder of 2 startups. One of them is called the Heal Collective, and the other is an AI video game. And she's going to be sharing, she has a lot of wonderful life experiences she's going to be sharing with us. And I can't wait to hear her story. So let's just go right into it, Carissa. Please start with introducing yourself. Tell us about yourself. What was growing up like? What has been your life's journey so far?
Yeah, it's a fun story if I do say so myself. I think it's been really interesting. So thank you so much for having me on and giving me the opportunity to share. I hope people listening find something that resonates and something they can take away from it, because I think something that really comes forward for me is growing up, I kind of compared my life to what I held as the quote unquote standard or ideal. Growing up in the US, this idea of the nuclear family, the white picket fence idea. I was raised by a single parent. I'm an only child. We moved around a lot, and I witnessed my mom really struggling to make ends meet throughout my childhood. And I developed a story very early on that she was kind of doing it wrong, right? If she was doing it right, she'd be checking the boxes. We'd have more money, more resources, more success. And so very early on, as kind of a teenager, as I was going through high school, I decided I'm going to check all the right boxes. And so getting into college, I went to college for engineering and decided I was going to have that career, that successful, lucrative career. I met my first husband in undergrad, and it was in my first marriage that I realized, oh, wait a second, I'm listening to all the messages coming from outside of me about what I'm supposed to do to be happy. I'm checking all of these boxes, but I'm actually miserable. So I left that first marriage, and that was really the start of my introspective journey, this idea that like maybe I have the answers inside of me instead of listening to what everyone outside of me is telling me to do. So have been on this like expansive introspective journey ever since. It's about 15 years at this point. Met my second husband at age 30, had a really beautiful relationship that helped me transform in a lot of ways and transform my identity and shift how I'm showing up, really learning how to embody my authenticity and my power. And that marriage ended last year. I kind of decided to go way off the traditional path, went traveling for about 6 months, quit my job, sold the house, have been living out of a suitcase for almost 9 months now, being a full nomad, and just having a lot of adventures and truly living life on my terms, because I've learned how to cultivate a really deep sense of self-trust and knowing that no matter what happens, like I'll figure it out and I'll be okay.
Interesting. Wow. Thanks for sharing that journey with us. Wow. So, I mean, as a kid growing up, I even as a child, just thinking back to what you said, when you see your parents or older people do things, you're like, you guys aren't doing it well. Like if I was in your shoes, I'll do it this way, do it that way. So it's interesting to be like, oh, wow, okay. So you living your own life as you grew up, you realize, man, life is just a mixed bag. It's like so many things you can plan for something, another thing, happens. So how did that journey, like just seeing your mom struggle in that way, how would you say it affected maybe your romantic relationship or even your work life or anything generally?
Yeah, I think, Zuki, what a great observation. This idea of like, if I were in your shoes, right, I would be doing it a lot better. So I really developed a strong sense of needing to be in control. That was a big part of kind of how I learned to be in the world, how to operate. I tried to control everything because, especially as a kid, moving around a lot, I felt like I didn't really have a choice or a say in where we were going, when we were going different places. I felt kind of dragged along by my mom, and she and I have a beautiful relationship now. But at the time, it was really tough. And so I, as a young adult, decided I was going to be in control of everything because if I control everything, then nothing controls me. But that really affected not just my romantic relationships, but really everything in my life because I ended up having a lot of anxious energy trying to control a lot of things that are really outside of my control. Trying to control like how people perceive me, trying to control everything to the weather. I would get really upset if the weather didn't go my way, and I wasn't consciously trying to control the weather, but I just basically had a lot of anxiety if things felt out of my control or didn't go the way that I planned. So it affected my, especially the romantic relationship, my first marriage, because my ex was very controlling. So it was a very interesting dynamic. I called in a partner who wanted to be in control, and so did I. So it led to a lot of tension and a lot of conflict. And then my second ex husband, it's funny, we had a very similar upbringing in the sense that he also didn't feel like he was in control a lot in his childhood, but his adaptive strategy, rather than saying, I'm going to go out and control everything, he just developed a very strong resistance against anything that felt like it was trying to control him. And so that's something I think is really interesting in terms of romantic partnership dynamics. We often, in my experience and what I've studied in relationships, we often tend to call in people who, how do I say it, kind of pour salt on our wounds, right? The people who tend to trigger us or give us the opportunity to work through things. And so I wanted to control, he resisted being controlled. And that actually gave me a lot of opportunity to look at that pattern of behavior, to kind of go inward, unpack it, understand why am I behaving this way and what do I need to do to let go of it. And so that was a really transformative experience in terms of letting go of control and learning to trust myself and whatever comes my way.
Hmm, that's interesting. Yeah, I like how you really identified what the where the problem was, in those two marriages, and how you contributed to that. It's really very self-aware because a lot of times we control things without even knowing. Like when you were speaking, I was like, wow, yeah, I think that's really why sometimes I'm anxious about certain things because I'm trying to control things that are outside my control and I can't, and it gives me worry and anxiety. Wow,
Exactly.
that's do you think it had anything to do with maybe your career path? Can you talk a bit about your career choice and path and
Yeah,
your friendships,
absolutely.
even other areas of your life where that kind of control played
For
out?
sure. Yeah, absolutely. I went to university for engineering because I like to know why. For
Mm.
me, it was this idea that if I understand how the world works, if I understand why things are the way they are, I'll be able to control them. uh, I laugh now, but at the time it felt very real. And so I really wanted to be in control of my career as well because my mom never had a traditional like corporate career or a steady career. She kind of jumped from job to job. She was a server at restaurants, she worked in sales, she did all these different things. And so I wanted to sort of take control of my career, make sure I had a well-paying job, make sure I always had, the resources, the security that I needed. So it definitely influenced the career path that I took. And then even, gosh, about a decade ago, became very interested in leadership. And I think that was also kind of driven by this idea of, oh, I want to be in control. I want to be on top of the hierarchy, if you will. I want to be in the leadership position. And it was through studying leadership and getting into coaching, actually, career coaching, personal development coaching, and now leadership coaching, that I learned it's really not about being in control, right? The responsibility of being a leader is about creating the space for others to be empowered, for others to rise. And as a leader, my responsibility is to encourage and empower and remove the obstacles out of people's way. And the more I've learned to let go of the control and that anxiety of the things I can't actually control, the more joyful and fulfilling my life has become.
Wow, that's interesting, amazing. So how will you say you were able to, how have you been able to like, unravel and heal that area of your life? Have you been doing therapy or just reading?
All kinds of things, honestly. I've seen multiple therapists over the last 10 or 12 years. For the time, the season of where I was in my life, I would find a therapist that really worked for me. I know people who have been working with the same therapist for multiple years. And so I think I'm a huge proponent of therapy. I think there are a lot of different modalities within therapy that have helped me, not just talk therapy or that cognitive behavioral therapy. I love EMDR, and I love a lot of somatic practices. That's been a really big one for me. I tend to be in my head a lot. And so over the last 5 years or so, I've been really intentional about learning how to drop into my body, learn how to understand what are the sensations my body is feeling, what are the clues that it's trying to send me about a situation or about a person or relationship. And I've really learned to cultivate a lot of respect for the wisdom of my body rather than thinking, oh, it's up to coming back to controlling my body with my head. Now I've created this partnership between my body, my heart, my intuition, and my mind. And so I think that's been incredibly helpful. So therapy. I also love a lot of other somatic practices like dance, getting rid of, the things that we store in our body. For anyone who's a book reader, I love reading as well. So like The Body Keeps the Score, for instance, has been a really influential book for me, learning how when we go through adverse experiences or traumatic experiences early on, we store the memory of those experiences in our bodies, unlike animals that tend to just kind of shake it off and move on. And so
Mhm.
the more work I've done to release that trauma from my body, the better I feel in my body, the more in tune I feel. And it really, for me, comes down to the ability to be present in the moment. Speaking of my childhood, because I lived in a situation that didn't feel like I was in control, I often spent a lot of time in the future, kind of crafting the scenarios of when I'm in control, right? When I get to decide what I want to do. And so I spent a lot of time. We tend to say people spend a lot of time in the past, kind of reliving experiences, or in the future. And I'm a future person. And what has been really, really powerful for me is to recognize that the future and the past are all figments of our imagination. Truly, they are not real. The past did happen, but it's not happening
Mhm.
anymore if we can learn to let
Yeah.
go of it. And the future, yeah, I can plan. I can, kind of set up the dominoes in the direction that I may want, but truly life is happening in this present moment. So the more I've gotten curious to understand what makes me run away from the present moment, what makes me think I can't handle the present moment, and cultivate that practice of being present, even if and when it's uncomfortable, that has been tremendously powerful for me. So meditation has been really helpful too.
Wow. Those are very good tips. Thank you so much for sharing that. Thanks for sharing that. There are lots of ways we don't know because sometimes we always point fingers at other people as being, oh, they are the toxic ones, they are the problem, right? But sometimes there are things we even do which are like blind spots for us we don't even understand that could also be contributing to toxicity and inconvenience for others. So I imagine for you, maybe in the past, in your past, right, we having this desire to control, it made you like a high achieving person, like a high achiever, someone maybe in your career as well, right? Always wanting to achieve, wanting to be at the top and be in control, right? Are there other areas, are there other ways this, you observed or you noticed that you exhibited some of those, other traits? I'm trying to articulate my words. Like, are there other traits you saw? Maybe even in your romantic relationship, because again, like you were saying, with marriage or with relationships, it takes two to tango, and love might not be enough. Yeah, you love each other, but there's just these things grating at the relationship, making it not to work. Are there other subtle signs we need to look out for in ourselves, within ourselves, not even in our partner or in our co-workers, but in ourselves, to ensure we have better relationships? Sorry, that was a long-winded question. I hope
Love
I
it.
didn't
That
lose you
was
there.
great. No, no, definitely didn't. I'll respond with what comes forward, and then if you want to clarify or go back down it, we can. But I think it's such a beautiful question because there's a lot to be said for taking responsibility for the life that we live. I want to be really clear, right? The nuance here is not self blame and saying that,
Mm,
everything that has happened to me is my fault, assigning blame to ourselves, because I don't think that that is constructive. But what I mean by taking responsibility is exactly to the comment that you made. What's the part that I've played? And can I take 100% of the responsibility that is mine to take? So, for instance, let's say we're in what is a toxic relationship for whatever reason. We may not be the one who is triggering the abuse that we're receiving, but
Mm-hmm.
there is something really hard to acknowledge that we are allowing it if we're staying in that relationship. So there is the two to tango aspect that I think is really important that you brought up. And so for me, what's been really important is to see every single person outside of me, whether it's romantic relationship, friends, colleagues, everyone I see on the street is a mirror. And that is an opportunity for me to say, what is it that's being reflected back at me? So, to your comment about kind of being a high achiever, absolutely. It wasn't just my desire to be in control, but the other part that was really interesting for me to unravel was realizing that a lot of my motivation to achieve and succeed came from a deep seated belief that I wasn't worthy. And so I thought that if I hustled my way, I would achieve my way to worthiness. And so I was constantly doing and trying to do more and more, thinking if I do enough, then people will start to see me as worthy. But interestingly, I kept running into bosses, relationship partners, friends, whoever it was, who would reflect back to me that idea that I'm not enough. If I was going up for a promotion, for instance, I would get passed over and be told, oh, you don't have enough experience, you don't have enough this or that. And so it was really interesting for me to take responsibility to say, because the energy that I'm embodying right now is a belief that I'm not enough, that's what I'm calling in, and that's what's being reflected back at me by the people I'm in some sort of relationship with. So, for instance, if someone that I work with is triggering me, now I get really curious. That's really interesting that they're triggering me. What's coming up inside of me, right? What's the belief? What's the judgment that I'm creating? And it's like a detective game for me. I love it,
Yeah.
honestly. It has become a lot of fun to say, what is it inside of me that doesn't like what I'm seeing? So rather than pointing the finger, because a lot of times I think what it comes down to is many of us haven't cultivated the ability to be uncomfortable in our body. So
Mm-hmm.
when an uncomfortable feeling arises, we look for putting blame on the source of that pain to say, you're making me uncomfortable, so you need to change because I don't want to be uncomfortable anymore, without realizing that the true power is saying, this person triggered discomfort in my body, but it's within my power to diffuse the discomfort. And so that's where there's a lot of opportunity to expand, to let go, to heal through the reflections that we're getting from other people.
What if it's not within your power to change? And I'm speaking from personal experience because you just hit a nerve here with me, right? What if it's not within your
Beautiful.
power?
Can you say more? I'd love to hear. I mean, you don't have to go into
So,
the specifics if you don't want, but what
yeah.
do you mean by that if it's not within your power to change?
Okay, so if, for instance, I feel like, for instance, I'm a single woman, never been married, no child, and I feel like someone's reaction towards me is because of my status. It could be imagined, perceived. It might not be true, but like I feel that way. And for me, the thing to do is to just go on the offense or just reject or just treat them somehow, right? I wish I could. I know it's triggering something within me, but I know I can't change. Like it's not within my control to change these things, at least right now, immediately.
Mm, mm,
And so somehow I'm like, okay. That's where I'm coming from. If it's not within your
yeah.
power to change it.
Well, really beautiful, and I'd love to go down this thread for just a little bit and unpack it if you're game for it.
Hmm.
So I think what I'm hearing you say is, if it's not within my power to change the circumstance or the external situation, right, in terms of marital status, like having kids or not having
Hmm.
kids. However, the thing that comes up for me is a question around, what is your own belief about yourself being single and not having children?
Hmm. That's tough. Yeah, I mean, I've never thought deeply about it, but let's see. I feel like, maybe it makes me feel left behind, right? Or like behind in some sort of way. Like maybe there's a metric or there's a race or something to accomplish and I haven't accomplished it yet.
Mm,
So it kind of makes me feel like I'm coming short of this thing I should accomplish by now that I haven't. So it doesn't
mm,
make me feel, my belief about it is it makes me feel, I don't want to say feel like, I don't want to use very hard word on myself because I try when those thoughts come, I try to, negate them. But it doesn't make me feel good, basically.
Yeah. So
And
I want to say
so
that's
feeling
really
that,
beautiful awareness. Yeah, keep going.
yeah. Yeah, so when I feel someone treating me that way, because of something I can't control, it kind of I don't know how to bring it back within myself to say, okay, it's not them, it's me. It's more like it's them because they are not good people to make me feel this way because of something I can't even control, if that makes sense. It's toxic, I know. It's not the way I should, react to it, but that's just where it is for me. Sorry, this is almost sounding like a therapy
I
session.
think it's no,
Yeah,
this
I
is beautiful.
understand your
I love it.
point.
This is what life is all about, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
life is about these realizations and unpacking. And so I just want to share, one, thank you for your openness, your ability to even just reflect on the fly in this moment really shows, your self-awareness. And so what I might offer as an invitation to look at, and you can take it or leave it, right? If it doesn't resonate, then you can just chuck it out the window. What I'm hearing is when someone comes with that perception of you, it sounds like to me that it's actually touching the nerve of what you already believe about yourself. So
Hmm.
that person is reflecting, and that's where the mirror idea comes in. They're reflecting a belief that you're holding about being behind, or you should be somewhere that you're not right now. And so I agree, it's not always within our power to change our circumstances, but what I'd be really curious to know, and we could have follow on conversations if you're interested, is how could you reframe that belief into something that helps you feel confident that you're exactly where you need to be right now? That the reason that you're single or you haven't had children yet is because it's all part of this beautiful divine plan, or the person that you're meant to be with, you haven't met them yet. And so it sounds like it might be coming from kind of a place of lack, right? I want something that I don't yet have. And so the power to change, the opportunity is in the mindset itself, not necessarily in the circumstance, because I think this actually brings up a really beautiful point. So I'm so glad you brought it up. Oftentimes, we talk about this equation of have, do, be versus be, do, have. What I mean by that is oftentimes we get in the culture, we get conditioned into this idea that once I have the husband, the house, the job that I want, I'll be able to feel confident or feel whole or whatever it is, and then I'll be at peace. I'll feel really good about who I am and where I am. But really what's been wild for me to experience, and for those around me that I speak with about this, it's actually the opposite direction. It's when we embody the feelings and the way of being that we want to be, that we think is on the other side of those circumstances. When we
Hmm.
embody that level of energy, we become an energetic match to then attract the people that we want and the relationships and the circumstances that we want, because we're vibrating at that frequency, if you will. So rather than thinking, once I have, let's say, a family in this case, once I have a family, then I'll feel like I'm in the right place, I'll feel whole, whatever those stories are that can come in. Instead, how can we flip it and say, I am whole, and then from that place, call in the family that you've always desired?
That's actually a good one. That's actually, and I think listening to you speak, it actually, I think maybe I'm a Christian. I'm a woman of faith. I believe, in God, and everything that happens to us happens as a result of His providence, His will for our lives. We all have different paths, different journeys in life, right? So, for instance, the example I shared earlier, most times the only thing that helps me reframe it in my mind is by thinking that, okay, yes, maybe just like you alluded to it as well, it's not time yet. God loves me, has provision for every of His child, and at the right time it will come. And maybe my family is, like it just helps me go through it, right? And then I agree with you as well on wanting, because sometimes we feel like we need something. If only I have this, then my life will be complete. And then you have it. Like for a long time at work, I wanted this promotion that had eluded me for so long. And I was like, if only I get this promotion, I'll feel more confident, I'll feel more able, I'll feel more capable. And then I get the promotion, and yay, I was so happy for all of 1 week, right? And afterwards, I'm like,
Exactly. Exactly.
it's just, so I agree with you. Like just always wanting to, you're thinking that you're happiness is on the other side of your expectations. It's an illusion. So be happy first, and those things you desire will definitely come. And when it comes, you get better satisfaction from it. So yeah, thank you so much for having this little therapy session with me. It kind of helped me.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your awareness and your willingness to be vulnerable. I think that's the real beauty of sharing our stories, is in helping people. I'm sure people listening are thinking, wow, I'm not alone, right? In how I feel, because I also feel behind. I also felt that for a long time. And that was the hustle, right? Going to achieve. If I just get success, then I'll feel
Yeah.
whole, I'll feel confident, I'll feel peaceful, whatever it is. And exactly. So thank you. I really appreciate that. It was a
Yeah. Oh,
beautiful
thank
journey.
you. Thank you. So, Carissa, a very accomplished human. So what would you say you have learned from everything you went through, from your divorces, from quitting your job and starting? We're gonna go into it. Just telling us a bit about your career, like what you're doing now since quitting your job. What would you say you've learned? What has been your greatest lessons? Your greatest, yeah, thing you want to share with
Yeah.
us?
There's so much, but I think the thing that's really present for me right now that has been really transformative, in addition to letting go of control and learning to see everyone as a mirror, I think the really powerful thing for me is learning to embody self trust. So I spoke earlier about how I used to kind of future tense everything and put myself in these scenarios where, oh, I'm in control, I'll have everything I want. And what it really came down to was a fear or a belief that if something happens to me in the moment, I won't be able to handle it. I won't get it right. I won't know what to do. And so I really lacked self trust. And the more I've worked very intentionally on self trust specifically, the more I've learned how to be present. And, these days everyone talks about like be present, it's only in the present moment. There are a lot of cliches around it. But to truly embody the present moment, I found can be really difficult. And so I think that for me, it's this idea of how do we, for me, it's about getting curious. Whenever I start to future tense, I try to control something that's outside of my control. I really activate that curiosity to say, what's making me think that I need to control that thing? What's the underlying fear? What's the underlying belief that makes me think that, we'll go with a relationship, right? That if my partner behaves in a certain way, that why do I think I need to control him and his behavior? Well, ultimately, it unravels and it comes back to, because I don't want to be uncomfortable, because I don't trust myself to move through the emotion that it would trigger if he behaves that way, whatever it is. And so cultivating self trust has also enabled me to learn how to tune into what is my authentic path in this life. Rather than checking those boxes, rather than following the herd and what everyone else is doing or what people say I'm supposed to do to be successful, to be happy, by tuning in to myself and getting really curious and developing that self trust, it has given me the courage to go very far off of the traditional path. So, quitting my corporate job, now a two-time founder in two different startups, I'm taking a lot of risks. I spent about 7 months traveling internationally, nomadically. I climbed Kilimanjaro. I
Wow.
got my yoga teacher certification. I drove a camper van around New Zealand for a month. And these are things that I had always dreamed of and wanted, but I always found reasons or excuses to not do them. Oh, I don't have the time, I don't have the money. But what it really came down to was I didn't have the capacity in my nervous system to be able to handle that level of uncertainty or that level of risk. So I played it safe. But as I've cultivated the capacity in my nervous system to stay regulated, to stay grounded in more and more situations, it has enabled me to go off to all of these far off adventures. And so I would say cultivating self trust and learning to tune into nervous system regulation or dysregulation. One other thought I'll give on that, because I think it's really important to me, is, this idea that oftentimes we sort of trick ourselves into thinking, if I heal through this experience, then I won't get triggered anymore. And then we get
Mm.
upset with ourselves to say, oh, I already worked through this. Why am I getting upset about this? Why am I getting triggered again? When in reality, that's like saying, I already figured out why my hand got burned when I touched the hot stove. So I should be able to touch a hot stove again and not get burned. If we say it like that, it sounds silly, right? Like that doesn't make any sense. Our emotional triggers are our body's way of saying, hey, something's making me feel unsafe, something's hurting me in this moment. So rather than trying to eliminate the trigger, if we see emotions as data and we say, oh, what's dysregulating me in this moment? What's making me feel unsafe? Then that's the pathway to cultivating safety and getting back to a place of regulation.
Hmm. That's powerful, you know. Thanks so much for sharing that. I think that that's wonderful. Just self-trust, because I think we all need to, you know, because growing up, you can have people around you just sowing seeds of distrust for yourself with it, like making you feel like you're not capable. And if you stay there, then you really definitely lose trust in yourself. But just coming back to that place of, okay, I'm able, I'm capable, I can do this. It helps you venture out into pursuing those dreams. So what led you into like these two startups? The one is a video game, the other is Heal Collective. Can you speak a bit about those two startups?
Yeah, absolutely. One comment I just want to make of what you just said, though, too, you know, the sowing the seeds of distrust, I also want to emphasize it often comes from a place of good intention, right? Our parents, for instance, want to keep us safe. So, how often do they say, no, I'll do this for you? No, you can't do that, because they want to keep us safe. But what ends up happening as children when we're trying to figure out our place in the world, what that actually ends up doing is it makes us say, oh, I can't trust myself. I can't trust my body. I need to trust someone outside of me, whether it's my parent, my pastor, my boss, my teachers, whoever it is. So we are conditioned to not trust ourselves, but to trust the authority figures in our lives. And again, it comes from a beautiful place of love and good intentions to keep us safe. But that's where we need to start to get curious and say, wait a second, I need to stop giving my trust and my power outside of me and bring it back inside of me. So I just wanted to clarify that.
That's actually powerful you say that. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, yeah, we can have so much gratitude for our parents and recognize, okay, well, as a 3 or 4 year old, I didn't really have the cognitive ability to understand the complexity and the nuance of why they were behaving the way that they were. So I was doing my best in creating, I like to say, software, right, in our brains for, okay, what does that mean about me? How do I operate in the world? But do we as adults, do we want to be running software that we created when we were toddlers? We have the opportunity to upgrade the software.
True. Wow. That's impressive. And most parents don't even know that. Like, do they call them helicopter parents where they like
Hmm.
help their kids do everything?
Exactly, exactly. Well
Yeah.
intentioned, but can
Well
often set
intentioned.
us up for, all kinds of issues in the future.
Yeah, honestly, because you feel like you're showing love by, oh, let me help you fix it. Let me help you do this. Oh, I love you. But actually, interesting.
And it's
Wow. Okay.
it's usually a pendulum, right? Usually those helicopter parents, not always, but tend to be the kids who didn't get what they wanted or receive enough from their parents, and so they kind of pendulum to the opposite extreme, and then we just kind of see this pendulum going back and forth.
Wow. A lot of things are making sense. Okay. Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. So to answer your question about, these businesses and where they came from, excuse me, the Heal Collective is one that I've been wanting to start for about 5 years. I've had a document living on my computer, the one day I'll do this. But what it really comes down to is I want to share, these lessons. I want to share my journey. And I feel so much of my purpose, my dharma, God's purpose for me, whatever language we want to use for it. My purpose is to help create containers of safety so that people can do this work for themselves, because there's this phrase that I love, that we often become the person that we needed. And what I craved, what I wanted so much in my journey, was someone to help make me safe. And so for me, it's what I realize is, going back to the idea of self-trust and self-empowerment, I don't want to heal anybody else because I can't, right? That's something that I have no control over. People need to want to do the work themselves. But what we can do is we can create containers of safety that help you slow down, that help you take a breath, that help you get curious. We can mirror things. We can give you tools to help with that introspective journey. And when I look culturally around me, especially in the US or Western culture, the idea of hustle culture, like the system loves that we don't feel worthy. right? Because if we're always out going for that promotion, going for that next job, working all of our waking hours, it's very profitable, you know? But when we
Yeah.
start to wake up, when we start to question and we start to say, wait a second, there's more to life than just working all the time or achieving these, metrics of success, then we start to tune into, well, what do I want? And maybe what I want is to go lay in the grass for an hour and meditate. That's not super profitable to corporate America.
Mhm.
And so I think there's a lot of giving ourselves a lot of grace to understand that the system that we live in really profits and wants to keep us in the
Busy.
hamster wheel, if you will. Yeah, like keep us hustling. And so giving ourselves the grace to realize, oh, this is really hard work. But if we can find those people, if we can find those resources, those containers where I can hopefully create a shield around people, even if it's just for 5 minutes, 1 hour, a coaching engagement, a retreat, it can look a lot of different ways. But to help you go, and take a breath, right? To settle into your body, to pause long enough that you're not always on to the next thing and feel like you have to be doing. Because when we
Mm.
can stop and just be, that's when the magic happens. That's when a lot of the insight comes up. And that's ultimately what I want to do, is to help create those containers to inspire people to do that work for themselves if they're ready for it. And so the video game is very similar. It's a cozy simulation, kind of the kawaii vibe, if you know Japanese like anime, the very cute like Hello Kitty vibe. It's a
Okay.
really fun, playful environment. We're early stages, but I'm very impressed with my technical co-founder. He's the genius behind all the game development itself. And it's a place for us, rather than being dysregulated all day at work and then coming home and playing a video game like Call of Duty where you're shooting people and being shot at. That's just further dysregulating your body. So this is an
Mm.
opportunity for you to come, rest, play. You can paint, you can create, you can go on adventures with your AI companions or with other people that you know in real life. So it's multiplayer, it's open world, and it's all about returning to play and rest. It's a lot of fun.
Wow, that's good. I love that. I've never been a video games person, but what you're describing now sounds like something I might want to get into. Um,
Amazing.
okay,
We'll put
that's
you on the list.
okay. Please do, please do. Nice. So, how can people like reach, your work, like for instance, the Heal Collective, for instance, and then the video game? How can they connect with that if they wanted to?
Yeah, great question. So, my partner and co founder and I are actually on the road with the Heal Collective right now. We're going to, right now, 7 cities across the US over the course of the summer, having different events. So, would love anybody who's listening and would love to have you at one of our events. You can check our website, healcollective.me, or on Instagram. It's this Yeah, you got it. And on Instagram, it's the same handle at healcollective.me, trying to make it simple and easy to find. So we're traveling the US, giving people exposure to some of these different healing modalities, really activating these
Mhm.
communities of support and love and play. And then if you're interested in the video game, you want to sign up to, you can either just watch our trailer, you can sign up to be a play tester when we release our closed beta. You can join our waitlist at astrapuffs.com. It's Astra with an A, astrapuffs.com.
Wow, that's awesome. I love that. And I've never heard of this. So, do you have other competitors in this space, or are you the first in this space with what you're describing for the video game?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'll say there are a lot of precedents and semi competitors. We've got, Hello Kitty Island Adventure, Stardew Valley, Animal Crossing. There are some elements of it that are similar to like a Minecraft and that it's open world, or Second Life. So there are games that are similar. But we also have augmented reality and extended reality challenges built into the game. So thinking like Pokemon Go. So we're taking a lot of those elements and then infusing our unique spin on it. So what I would say is there's nothing like it in the market right now, and we're aiming to be hopefully first or one of the first to market. But then we also have this beautiful technology right now, this advent of AI. There are a lot of games that incorporate AI today, but it's more static AI. So what we're doing is building the agentic AI piece inside the video game. So you think about having like Chat GPT inside as a non-playable character in your video game, so you can ask questions, you can go on adventures, you can really build a relationship. And those AI agents, they're going to remember you. And so I would say it's really unique in that you get to have an adventure inside this game that nobody else is having. Whereas a lot of other games, it's like you talk to the non-playing characters and it's the same thing, right? It's scripted. You're checking off the same boxes. You're going on the same adventure as other players. But in this case, it's a game that's uniquely suited for you within the world of the game of quests and puzzles and challenges, but the AI agents can actually adapt to your interests. They can tell you stories by the campfire. So it's really a unique experience.
Wow, that sounds exciting. Please sign me up. I'm gonna
You
look
got
into
it. You got it.
it.
Amazing.
Wow, awesome. Quite impressive. Wow. So many lives journey, so many experiences. So, I mean, I feel like you're doing something you love to do. You're doing something you're being able to share with the world from your experience. I mean, some of the things you've struggled with, like with the Heal Collective, even with the video game, being able to put it into format where people can also learn and glean from it is very commendable. And there's nothing as good as pursuing your passion in the truest form, what you love. I mean, I do 9 to 5 job and I'm doing it not because I wouldn't necessarily say I love what I do, but I do it because, I have to make a living. So I think it's, aspirational where you are right now, being able to do, what you're doing, what you love. Yeah, kudos on that. And being a woman too, I feel like we need more women co-founder, startup founders and all that. So awesome.
Thank you so much. I think I really appreciate that reflection. And I would say that, it's been a long road to get here. So I just want to, really emphasize that because I've gone through challenges. I was in the corporate environment for close to over a decade, actually, with consulting in the corporate environment. And so I've been in those shoes, right? The 9 to 5 and wanting something different or more or whatever it is. I say that just to say that, if I can do it, everyone can do it. It does often take some courage, some self awareness, some curiosity, taking responsibility, right? To go inside and maybe unpack some of those old beliefs that we're carrying with us from childhood or from some of those adverse experiences. But it's absolutely possible for, I believe, everyone to have the life that they dream of. It's not going to look like mine because this is the life I'm dreaming of. But for you to have the life that you dream of and for everyone to have that life, um, yeah, it's absolutely possible.
Thanks for that encouragement. So, what would be your advice or word of encouragement to any woman? Let me say
Mm.
women because I feel like sometimes people say it's a man's world. I don't believe that anyway. But like, what would be your advice to a woman who maybe just like you has been through maybe divorce or maybe loss of job, loss of whatever it is, and is struggling, trying to still make something of their life at whatever age they are, because there's no limit there. So, what would be your advice to them?
I think it's a great question, and I think we could have lots of conversation about this. But I'll try to boil it down. I think something that has been really amazing for me over the last several years is realizing that because of that phrase, we live in a man's world. I tend to think a lot in terms of masculine and feminine energy. And
Mm,
so for a long time, I was really embodied in my masculine energy because I believe that everybody has both of those, right? It's not men are masculine, women are feminine. I was embodied in my masculine energy, the hustle, the achievement, the action oriented, trying to control things. And over the last 5 years or so, I've been doing a lot of really intentional healing with my feminine. I call it my rewilding experience and connecting to my intuition, connecting to the wisdom of my cycle, even. We live in a world that we assume we can be the same level of productive every single day. As a woman, our bodies change over the course of the month. And so learning to lean into different phases of my cycle, learning to capture that wisdom of my body, my intuition, has been amazing because I didn't lose the tools and the ability to be in my masculine, but I'm gaining a lot of tools by learning how to be in my feminine. So there's a lot of healing that has come from softening, from being still, from leaning into the less logical and the more embodied or somatic practices. So healing that relationship with my feminine has been a game changer. And I would invite all women into wherever they are on their journey to really lean into that feminine wisdom.
wow. Okay. That's good. I never heard of it put this way, like feminine. Yeah, I hear of feminine and masculine energy, but I never heard of, being more in masculine or more in feminine. But that's true. That makes total sense. Okay, thank you. So I wanted to know, just out of curiosity, what has been your most fun travel experience? Was it hiking the Mount Kilimanjaro? What has been your most fun travel experience recently?
Gosh, it's hard to say because it's all been so much fun. I will say that hiking Kilimanjaro was felt like an incredible accomplishment. It was really, really beautiful. It was challenging at times, and it was something I had wanted to do for a long time. So that was certainly a big one. The other one that comes forward right now is I spent a month driving a camper van around New Zealand, and New Zealand was kind of at the top of my bucket list to travel to. I'd heard such beautiful things about the landscape, and so I started on the North Island. I drove down, camping in my single person camper, finding places to camp every night.
You were by yourself? Wow, that's brave. Wow, okay.
And honestly, New Zealand was a great place to do it because I felt very safe. Everything was, very easy. They cater to campers and camper vans really well. So I felt safe to go and do that kind of solo adventure. But I had a lot of amazing experiences across New Zealand. And yeah, that was like a true dream come true. So that was a lot of fun. And it was really beautiful. And I got to skip winter. I spent the last 5 years in Colorado having really rough winters. So I spent the whole month of January in New Zealand in summer. So that was amazing.
Wow, yeah, that's good. That must be nice. That must have felt nice. Wow, that's nice. Thank you so much for sharing that. So do you have any other word, any final words for our audience, and where can people reach you, like your social media handles and all that?
Yeah, yeah. I think the final word I would just say is thank you. I think I'm deeply grateful to be exactly where I am on this journey. It doesn't mean that everything is easy or roses, but I'm really grateful for the tools I've cultivated to be able to navigate challenges. I feel very resilient, and I'm very grateful to people like you who are also doing incredibly vulnerable work. You've got this 9 to 5, and then you're also putting your voice out there through this podcast and sharing these stories. So thank you for doing the work that you're doing. And thank you to everyone who's
Yeah,
listening for doing the work that you're doing, because I really believe that our strength is in our connection, right? That's what differentiates us, is our ability to build community. So lean into connection, lean into that love of yourself. Self-love and self-trust can be
yeah.
cliche terms these days, but I think that's really where there's a lot of power. So I would just say thank you. And my key phrase that I like to say these days is thank you more, please. No matter what's happening, thank you more, please.
Thank you more, please. Nice. Love that. And then do you have
Yeah.
social media a handle like Instagram, Facebook, or
Yeah, so I'm mostly on Instagram. So I have the healcollective.me, and then mine is wild underscore moss underscore. So I like to embody moss and getting back into nature. So people can
Mhm.
follow me personally at Wild Moss. I share a lot of my journey and things that resonate with me, people that are doing great work on either of those Instagram handles.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. And I'll put all of those information in the description box of the YouTube and the show notes of the podcast. Wow, this has been good. I got some therapy, got some very useful insights. Oh yeah, really. Thank you so much, Carissa, for coming on. Really enjoyed your sharing your story with us. I'm sure people will resonate with it, and I'm looking forward to playing that video game whenever it's fully live, and all that. So thank you so much. Okay,
Amazing. Thank you,
thank you
Zuki. I
so much,
appreciate it.
viewers. You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you so much for joining us on today's episode. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed it. Please give us a like, comment, share, subscribe, leave us a review wherever you're listening from. And please visit Carissa's website, healcollective.me, and also her Instagram, wild underscore moss underscore. Did I get that right?
You got it.
Awesome. Okay. And I'll leave all
Impressive.
of that in the video as well. Yeah. So thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye bye.